Let's continue this discussion. We are in the living lab example from the University of California, Santa Cruz campus, and we are obviously splitting it into multiple podcasts because this is an important concept. So I may have at least two more of these podcasts on this chapter, which is okay. As I said before, if this course was to be taught in a classroom, then you have a semester, you have to fit the content, so you would pick and choose the material from different books, much more carefully. Here I'm summarizing everything just so that you can pick and choose yourself from the channel. Okay, so this is the continuum between problem and project-based learning. We just looked at experiential learning. So what are the commonalities and what are the distinct things? So problem-based learning, outcomes, deeper understanding and theory building. Main activity tends to be inquiry of problematic situation that's been handed to you, or you identified yourself by participating in a living lab-based course. Organizing principle tends to be a learning tutorial, and self-directed learning is very important. So full student-centered learning in loosely predefined settings. So you are given a course structure and how you will be evaluated and what is needed from your side in terms of the learning and so on, and it's focused on a problem. In the project-based learning, you have outcomes that are case-specific understanding and practical products. So you have to complete the project and deliver a report, an outcome, a metric, some measure of the completion of the project or why it didn't get completed. Like finding that campus is basically greenwashing and you couldn't get any data. Main activity, producing applicable results. If it's successful, then the results should be applicable outside the project context. Organizing principle is project management. Self-directed learning, student-centered within predefined project frame. So the project management idea here, you have to take it carefully because depends on the size of the project, and maybe it's a team project, maybe there are multiple components involved, in which case maybe there is one student who is actually doing project management and others are managing pieces of the project and so on. So it really depends on the predefined project frame. The commonalities here: engage students in real-world tasks, student-centered small group work, so there is typically a group involved. Simulate professional situations so that you're dealing with people, with colleagues, trying to work together towards an outcome and so on. Processing multiple information sources, so everybody is gathering and analyzing information, adding together a synthesis. Teacher as a facilitator for learning and resource guide, and formative and performance-based evaluations. So it's a group, then everybody gets evaluated based on their predefined role, and there will be other additional evaluation criteria for the outcome of the team itself and so on. And in this direction we go towards problem-based learning, and here project-based learning with these commonalities. If you look at the experiential learning spectrum, coming back to experiential learning, the red arrow shows the direction of increasing ambiguity and complexity that ultimately leads the learner through real-world practice. So wicked problems are always ambiguous and complex, and one has to deal with it, often just resolve the project and not really solve it in that sense. So you have theory and practice or praxis. Let's define praxis as a proper English word, even though you and I both have intuitive sense in this context. But what is the broad general dictionary meaning of praxis? Doing again on near real time. Praxis is practice as distinguished from theory, so it seems to be the same word. Accepted practice or custom. So there you are. Patterns of Christian praxis in church and society is an example. So it is broader in the sense practice is can involve innovation, or you can try to stick to what is broadly accepted already. So you have classroom learning on this end here with some reductionism involved on this axis, and you have holism, systems thinking, and real world complex problems going in this direction. So if you are here, then you are fully practical and systems thinking with some kind of a holism, so that the project has each component addressed in that sense. So I want to read all of them. So here you are inquiry based learning, so students posing questions about the world, and still in the reductionist classroom learning approach with some experiential learning that is starting. So you go to hands-on learning here, project-based learning, problem-based learning, entrepreneurial minded learning, so that you may involve it may involve selling something in the real world context, maybe to raise funds or to maybe engage a community to accept your input, maybe involve stakeholders, governments, and so on. And there are internships here, real world and professional experience, where you actually take your learning to a firm, to a government internship for with a justice, depending on the context and the discipline you are in sustainability or net zero and so on. You may be involved in some actual practical work situation, real world professional situation, doing an internship where again you'll be evaluated based on various criteria defined upfront in some way. So unpacking experiential learning definitions and sub-themes. I won't go into the details because a lot of words. So experiential learning, it's a modality that confronts learners with open-ended investigations, problem solving, and or design challenges while emphasizing student responsibility for the management of their own learning outcomes. There are other details on how instructions work and how various phases are involved in terms of self-directed learning, critical analysis, doing and reflection with self-efficacy. So you have to be able to judge your own progress. This is like you are now a responsible adult and not just taking a course and waiting for the exam. You are examining yourself. Aspects of experiential learning, inquiry-based learning. So you know what that means. An approach designed to mimic the scientific method. Activities feature strong scaffolding and facilitation. So there is a kind of an umbrella to ensure that students gain understanding of the pre-selected content knowledge or practice discrete process skills. Okay, hands-on learning, project-based learning. So we already looked at it. Utilizes case-specific understanding with multifaceted projects as a central organizing strategy for students' learning, in which goals, constraints, and the basic form of solution is known and predetermined by the instructor or a client. You are not given a fully open problem to start from scratch to see how far you go. In general, especially if it's aimed at undergraduate, the student tends to apply process and technical skills in response to open-ended questions, resulting in a tangible product or outcome. So it's some constraints, but some open-ended learning opportunities. That's project-based learning. Problem-based learning, approach in which complex and compelling problems serve as the catalyst for learning. So it's not just a project, it's a problem. Students are introduced to a problem and work to try to identify the nature of the problems and the resources they will need to solve the problem. Sometimes you have to figure out in the field maybe who are the stakeholders involved and how they define the problem and how you apply your process and technical skills to work with them to see if they will find your solutions helpful or acceptable to actually change their modus operandi. Entrepreneurial minded learning, EML builds upon problem-based learning by emphasizing student-identified opportunities to create value in the real world for an engaged client, stakeholder, or customer base. Attention is given to outcome-oriented thinking rather than simple causal explanation. So here you are going to go and see what may sell. You may think wearable technology to solve a particular problem of outdoor workers. It could be water filter. It could be many things where you have identified a problem and you are going to work on it to produce a little product that actually then can be presented to a venture capitalist, a manufacturer, a government, an app can be built, and so on and so forth. Internships, obviously you know what they are. Interning puts the student into a world of work in a professional setting, providing the experiential basis for authentic engagement within a field or profession. Okay, but what are the actual implications of experiential learning for educational practice within sustainability? How can we bring the real world to bear on problems and issues that seem so simple in the classroom, moving learners from abstract contextualization to practical and applied conditions in which most challenges and problems arise? Here, we offer a set of explicit criteria to frame experiential learning in sustainability with an emphasis on the underlying principles of authentic design. Experiential learning in sustainability, so you have a few bullet points here, confronts the students with kinds of complex and open-ended real-world conditions and circumstances that are not amenable to the types of constrained or linear problem solving typical of college classroom. So you may be, as we said before, you may be taking a linear algebra problem, and books have problems at the end of the chapter, or the instructor has created them over time, or he may be taking it from a research problem, and so on. So it's a kind of a simplified setup where you directly apply the techniques you learned to close the homework problem or the exam problem and project problem. This is motivated by specific, actionable and situated goals and objectives that make social contribution to broader well-being. That is, it's not simply geared towards intellectual growth or self-improvement. It has an outcome with actual implications. Integrated, informed, critical knowledge with the application of specialized skills to a problem or a project. So we talked about problem-based and project-based learnings. Requires self-directed learning, agency and initiative. So agency is where you have the ability and the willingness to act, and you do act because this is your problem, in the sense you are doing it as a part of your education and learning and experience building, tool building and expertise acquisition. Relies on mentors to guide students while still allowing students to make their own way and their own mistakes, utilizing scaffolding as a tool to move difficult and ambiguous concepts into the student's zone of proximal development. Scaffolding is exactly that. You have a framework within which you are doing these things. An awning, I don't want to use an anagram for scaffolding. Maybe we should try to define it exactly what is meant. It's quite common in social science, and sustainability is actually mostly a social science. So scaffolding is a temporary structure on the outside of a building, which we know what it is, made of wooden planks, etc. But the broader meaning can also mean, is that it? No, there is a broader meaning. Yeah, anyway, let me leave it. You can go figure it out. You know what it means. It provides you a structure under which you stand, and scaffolding is usually done for a building to prevent rainfall as into the door, and cars to come in and pull up, and people to get in, get out, and so on and so forth. Okay, where was I? Relies on mentors. So let me read it again. Relies on mentors to guide students while still allowing students to make their own way and their own mistakes, utilizing scaffolding as a tool to move difficult and ambiguous concepts into the student's zone of proximal development. I think I will search scaffolding in social science and then see what happens. Involves hands-on and immersive problem solving in order to achieve goals and objectives, yet allows for critical reflection and analysis of what worked and what failed. So we'll go to figure 4 in a minute and look at some details. So what is scaffolding in social science? Okay, here we go. Scaffolding is a process in which teachers model or demonstrate how to solve a problem and then step back, offering support as needed. So I called it a framework, which is what it means. The theory is that when students are given the support they need while learning something new, they stand a better chance of using that knowledge independently. So you are given a model or demonstrate how to go forward, and then you are allowed to go and do it on your own. Okay, so maybe this is already over 10 minutes, 15 minutes, so let me leave this here and come back. As I said, we'll have a few podcasts on this topic, but I like the topic and I think it's critical, so I'll keep taking time on this one. Okay, it's still from the same chapter on living labs from UCSC. Okay.